Every once in a while I get the same kind of question thrown at me. Mark, is there any game series out there you like as much as Sonic? And the answer is... no. But there is another that I do have quite the fondness for. Crash! Crash Bandicoot! Okay, we're not doing the rest of that. Created by Naughty Dog and released for the original Sony PlayStation in 1996, Crash Bandicoot was one of the first true 3D platformers, along with Mario 64, Jumping Flash, Croc, I don't know. Crash skyrocketed in popularity, becoming the unofficial mascot for Sony, with his games selling millions of copies and being held in a high regard as a trilogy of games that, while lacking innovative or original gameplay, more than make up for it in just being a fun time, with likable characters, expressive animation, and a gorgeous looking world that blew people away when it came out. While they were originally only signed on to make 3 games, Naughty Dog managed to release a 4th Crash game, being Crash Team Racing, where they basically knocked it out of the park on their first time with the kart racing genre. And with that, Crash was taken away from his cars and handed around to other developers, where he would then become a multi-platform franchise, no longer exclusive to Sony systems, with the series being given to Mark Kearney. And who would be given the prestigious opportunity to carry on Naughty Dog's legacy? Traveler's Tales. Oh no. No, I don't think Traveler's Tales is a bad company, it's just... oh no. By the way, speaking of Traveler's Tales, my friend made a video on my friend's new second channel where they talk about Sonic games, with a video on there being about Traveler's Tales Sonic 3D Blast Director's Cut. But he's just a cool guy and probably has a giant come on, I never gotta plug my stuff. Look, I didn't even put a sponsor in this video. Give me a break. Give me money on Patreon. Now, I never grew up with the original Crash games. My first video game console was a PlayStation 2, but the one that went to the gym and got in shape. One day my dad's friend gave me a box of games he didn't want anymore, and only 2 of them stuck out to me. Monsters Inc. Scare Island, which I haven't played since, is it any good? Anyways, and Crash Bandicoot The Wrath of Cortex. Who was this Crash? And what the heck is Abandonment? So I plopped it into my PS2 in a comedic way like they do in those funny YouTube videos, and fell in love with Crash. Not literally, you know what I mean. I thought it was an amazing platformer, although I never could get past the third world. But after a while I went back and played the original trilogy, and I also thought those were amazing. But when I went back to The Wrath of Cortex, since playing the original 3, and it just never felt right again. Could it be possible that this thing I liked as a brainless child isn't really that good in retrospect? Well, with the brand new Crash Bandicoot 4 coming out soon, basically no longer making the events of The Wrath of Cortex and everything to come after canon, let's just see how the initial cracks of the Crash Bandicoot franchise may have started to show.
How many times have you beaten this clown anyway?
3.
Really? Only 3? Funny. Seemed like more.
So The Wrath of Cortex starts with... Is that the theme from Crash 3? Well, alright then, I think they're taking if it ain't broke, don't fix it to a whole new level. The plot of this game revolves around, oh my god, what is going on here? Who are you and what have you done with the Crash characters? So with Uka Uka being outraged at the villain's lack of success, Cortex reveals that he's been working on a new super weapon of unbelievable strength. But with him missing a power source, they awaken 4 imprisoned masks known as the Elementals. Take a guess what they control. So after being unleashed, Aku Aku warns Crash, Coco, and also Purah the tiger for some reason. They don't show up again. And with the power of PNGs with the brightness turned all the way down, they travel to each world in an attempt to gather the crystals. I don't really know what they'd do in this game, but I mean they had to do it in 3, so I guess we ought to do it here too. Now that's a pretty standard setup for one of these Crash games. So I have no idea how they thought it'd be a good idea to make this opening cutscene go on for like 10 minutes. Slowly explaining every single detail of the story to make sure the kids in the audience understand. And they didn't succeed too well because as a kid I didn't pick up on any of this. But maybe that's also because I'd always skip the opening cutscene because these character models frickin' terrified me. Alright, well at least we're finally able to start the game. Okay, well screw me I guess. Because who needs pacing? We're immediately introduced to our super weapon, Crunch Bandicoot. A lot of people hate Crunch, but I actually love the idea. Crash was set up as a failed experiment from Cortex, with him being created as the leader for his army, so it's interesting to see his original vision finally come to fruition and face off against the failed one. But enough of that, let's get into the gameplay. The Wrath of Cortex follows in the footsteps of its predecessors, featuring the same linear corridor-like levels of the first 3 games, but this time with a spin. It's bad. Okay, that's a bit of an overreaction, but I don't know, Crash just feels worse. He was really fun to control in the original because of how tight it all felt. Crash's moves all flowed together, and the level design complemented that perfectly. But here it's like they just dropped all the different moves in with no thought about how to build levels around it. The originals were heavily reliant on the assumption that the player's controller didn't have an analog stick. They existed, but you couldn't count on everyone owning one. Because of this, they could make each jump of the platform really tight, since they didn't have to worry about how hard you were pressing the stick forward. But with this one, I don't even think they understood the appeal of using a D-pad with Crash. There are a lot of narrow turning platforms and the camera is always shifting perspective, making it hard to judge what direction you should be holding it. Crash doesn't have the luxury of Sonic, where Sonic also changes the camera and perspective a lot. It's usually in more open and safe areas, where they know it won't lead you careening to your own death. You know, unless you're a small child or Aaron Hansen. And since a D-pad isn't optimal for these curving platforms, you're almost forced to use the analog stick, and only then do you realize how awful Crash feels to control. Now I'd hate to get into generic YouTube game reviewer speak, where I just call something floaty or slippery and leave it at that, but I don't know, it's hard to describe, he's just a lot slower in general. Like look at this footage of Crash climbing in 3, compared to the Wrath of Cortex. Come on Crash, some people got places to be! And don't get me wrong, it's not unplayable or anything. It's just hard to look past how much worse it is compared to the originals. And it's not like it really challenges you all that much for the controls to really strain you at all. Levels are filled with long, drawn-out hallways with maybe 1 or 2 obstacles. Lives are aplenty, and there's Wumpa fruit everywhere, so you're not going to be getting a game over anytime soon. On top of that, you basically have a mask on you 24/7 because of how common they are. Oh lovely, would you look at that? But if you thought Crash controlled like a neutered down version of the original, then wait till you see Coco, voiced by Jim Bob Jones himself.
Oh no! Crash! Look out! Brain blast!
In a few levels you get the chance to take control of Crash's sister, where instead of running, jumping, and spinning, you can jump, jog at a reasonable pace, and... well, I mean, it's technically a spin. I don't get the point in this. It's so confusing to me that they'd include a character in their game that had the exact same moveset as Crash, but just worse. Why in any way would I want to play as them? But wait, Mark. What? No, we did this in the last video. If Coco has normal stages in this game, does that mean there are no more vehicle levels? What? You know what? That's actually a fair point. I'm about to make a controversial statement, so here we go. Crash 3 is my least favorite of the original trilogy. Crash 1 is my favorite.
What an idiot. What a dumbass.
This guy sucks.
Vehicle stages are the worst inclusion ever in a Crash game.
No, yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, okay, we can all agree on that, cool. Crash 3 is a great game, but the thing that really sets it back for me are the vehicle levels. Some can be fine, like I think the airplane stages are fun. But does anyone out there really get excited when they see another jet ski level? How about the fun motorcycle? So in a desperate attempt to try and evolve the gameplay from 3 because people liked that one, the folks over at Traveler's Tales thought, we done just gotta add in more damn their vehicle levels and folks will like it. I don't know why I'm making them a fucking southerner. So now we've got airplanes, scooters, mech suits, minecarts, jetpacks, weird fly things, scuba gear, a submarine, snowboards, another mech suit. And none of them are fun. Well, except for the ball rolling. I like those. They just really disrupt the pace. It's hard to get into a platformer when you're constantly being bombarded with new gameplay styles and genres. That's why I like Crash 1 the best, it cuts all the crap. But out of the 25 stages in this game, I want to say like maybe 6 or 7 of them feature no dumb vehicles. Sometimes you'll even start a stage like, oh wow, it's that classic Bandy Boy just like I remember. Oh wait, you just jumped in another dumb vehicle. You may think I'm overreacting, but you're wrong. And the worst part is they bring this stuff into the boss battles. So after beating each level in a world, by the way, can I bring up how pointless these world themes are? Like the fire world will have ice levels, the rain world will have fire levels, it's just, why not swap them? Why not swap them? Anyway, after beating them, you can face off against Crunch, who is teamed up and is using the power of one of the elementals, who are all voiced by celebrities like Mark Hamill, Lee Ermey, Jess Harnell, and Biff. It's just Biff, I genuinely don't remember his name. These bosses suck. They're usually just some dumb alternate gameplay style and aren't challenging in the slightest. I like the Waterworld one though. I wonder if it's because it makes you do a platforming challenge to reach the boss by forcing you to optimize the skills you've learnt thus far. And because the designers loved 3 so much, you receive a power-up for beating the boss, and only one of the 5 isn't reused from 3. Okay, this is it, Traveler's Tales. This is your chance to prove your worth to me. What have you got? Lay it on me. I shouldn't be surprised. Was there anything not taken from 3 in this game that is remotely good? What? Why? What was the point in developing something that is used for 10 seconds and never seen again? It's like an intern came in and said, "Hey, look at this new box design I drew. It makes you invisible." And his dad was like, "Oh son, that looks amazing. I'm gonna put it right here for everyone to see." Speaking of seeing, this game looks awful. The character models are just... ugh. Everyone looks sick, and Crash has a constant gaping mouth and shows no sign of life ever. He was so expressive in the first 3. He was terrified of everything. Now he just looks confused with his sad clown makeup. And the environments don't fare much better. This game has a weird affection for 2D bubble trees that look like they belong in an N64 game. The environments aren't bad looking, but at the same time there's nothing interesting going on. I know this is getting old now, but the originals were so full of life. Levels were jam-packed with detail that made the worlds feel lived in. And despite this being on the PS2, they completely failed at translating Crash's world to the next generation. And the music. Oh, the music. What did they do to you? Crash 1. The music is pretty toned down and mellow. It gets crazy when it needs to be, but it's fairly atmospheric for the most part. Crash 2. More of the same, if a little more bombastic. Crash 3. Less to do with atmosphere and more to do with it just being a catchy tune to accompany level themes, which still works. And Crash the Wrath of Cortex. It's whatever. Like, not in the teenage girl, it's whatever kind of way. I mean, it's literally just whatever. Like, they just had a bunch of stock music and threw it in willy-nilly. It doesn't sound bad. Dare I say some of them even sound good. But it's nowhere near as atmospheric or iconic as what we've heard before, or even as good as what came after. With the next game, Crash to Insanity, they really started to embrace the wackiness of Crash's character and world. And the music fits that choice well, with some really, really good music. But Wrath of Cortex feels like the transitional period between that. Again, not bad, but not very good either. All this is a shame. It really seems like Traveler's Tales tried their best with this. As my friend mentioned in their Sonic 3D Blast video they made on their second channel that you should watch after finishing this video and hitting the like button and buying my merch. John Burton, the director of Traveler's Tales for 29 years, has started making YouTube videos where he details behind the scenes info about the games they worked on. And with him being the director on this game, he's given quite a bit of insight in its development. Wrath of Cortex was originally going to be designed by the same guy who made the first 3 games, Mark Kearney. It would have been an open-world, free-roaming game that featured Crash traveling between different planets. However, Traveler's Tales eventually got brought onto the project with their 3D demo they made for the game, and eventually it adopted a more traditional Crash Bandicoot style game. There's an entire pitch bible that John went through on his channel Game Hut, and I'd highly recommend watching it because it's almost an entirely different game. But with the game switching styles from open worlds to a more standard Crash title, Traveler's Tales had to scrap all the work they had done, and were only given 12 months to finish the game despite now having to start from scratch. They were done dirty, and I feel sort of bad for them, but at the same time, the game still sort of sucks. Wait a minute. I finally reached the mech level. Look, it's the one from the box art. I never got here as a kid and always wondered what it would have played like. Oh boy, there it is. Here we go. What the fuck?